in TheoTrade, this is Corey Rosenblum, and you're watching the Theo Nightly Video for the 30th of March here in 2021, which means April is right around the corner. And this is a holiday week, so we'll have Friday off of the market, so it is a 4-day trading week, which makes it a holiday week, and we may get continued bullish upside drift. At least so goes the holiday type of logic. And where we are in the S&P, it is a little bit shy of these all-time highs. We'll take a quick glance at each of the markets. So starting off, we have the S&P 500, the ES Futures. We can take a look at the SPX just to get us in terms of the index here. And for a little comparison, we are just a little bit shy, at least in the last session, of making an all-time high. It's okay to call it a retest, but not quite technically an all-time high. Underneath the S&P is the Nasdaq, and that's pulled back from the 14,000 level and all the way down to 12,500, and we're back in the middle, or at least a little bit under the middle of that 13,000 level. So that's a pullback in the technology sector. We continue to have this battle, and this has been a day in, day out battle, week in, week out, with respect to the S&P and the Nasdaq and the Russell. So in today's session, the weakest market was the Nasdaq, strongest market was the Russell, and down to our sector performance, XLF financials continue to be in focus and are coming up a little bit off of a retest or a bounce, but the technology sector is a little bit weak. And we can even say forming a sideways consolidation, box, or rectangle. And for the XLK, the shares are about 134.50 and about 129 per share. Now the financial sector, again, is a little bit more bullish, which is a little strange to say, but still did have a strong upswing and is not pulling back as steeply as the technology sector is. Underneath that is the XLY, which is discretionary. Now the battle keeps going back and forth on an intraday basis of money flow or behind the scenes rotation. And that is financials get strong one day, lose it the next. Technology gets strong one day, in fact, just the opposite of financials, and then loses it the next session. So we still have the stealth rotation going on behind the headlines and behind the market. Keep that in mind as we look now at the Dow Jones. This is the Dow Futures, YM, and it did squeak its way yesterday. I know it didn't feel that way, at least did not feel that way to me, but it did squeak its way to a new all-time high. And that is the Dow Mini Futures, or the ETF that goes along with it, is right here, is the diamonds. So DIA. Not a whole lot to go on for there. But the Russell, that had a steeper pullback. The Russell is the small cap index and tends to be a little more correlated to an extent with financials, or at least small cap technology or small cap stocks in general, financials being a large part of it. So this is where we are as we begin the new month into April and the holiday week. The Russell has its high and low, or box, if you will, at about the 2350 and 2100. So that's a key look at those big picture markets. And in tonight's video, let's just focus across the board on crude oil, which had a sharp sell swing, a couple of them actually, on the most recent retracement or pullback, or sell swing. So it itself is establishing a box. I think that's the theme of tonight's video, boxed in. Where will the market go next? And right now, crude does have the box at around 64 and 57.50. Don't get too precise when looking at trend lines or price levels. Just think of it as a consolidation sideways ahead of some type of future breakout. Or I think more appropriately, a consolidation, a sideways line or box after a strong rally, similar to a smaller extent what happened earlier in January. Sideways and then straight up, and then sideways and then straight up. And that's just a consolidation and expansion of the market. And finally, gold made a new low, or at least is probing those session lows and a continued downtrend. That downtrend is no longer a box. It really isn't box centric, but we might extend these just to look at them from earlier in 2020, and that's about 1700. So I'd make that a major reference level or trading tactic level in gold. And that will translate similarly to GLD. And GLD is a tradable ETF that tracks closely the gold market. Speaking of ETFs, there are similarities between the gold market or the gold contract and the bond market. In this case, this is TLT, which is a tradable ETF. It as well is tracking similarly to gold in terms of making lower lows in a downtrend on the daily chart. So that keeps us a little bit bearish on the bond market, but on guard for any type of sudden breakthrough or stronger than normal bounce. Any stronger than normal bounce in bonds should correlate with a stronger than normal bounce in gold, and of course a fallback or sell swing in the S&P. We can also see ZN, which is our 10-year Treasury note, and ZB, which is the 30-year Treasury bond. So money flow continues to be, at least for this moment, first few months of the year, defensive, or at least flowing out of the defensive names, out of the defensive names, and a little bit still bullish on the big picture. They can all change. That's why we have to have protection or hedges or otherwise not fully leveraged to the bull side, or in the bond market, fully leveraged to the downside. Trends do have a better odds to continue in their direction that they're moving, but that doesn't mean they don't swing back and forth or sometimes swing hard the other way. So either position or either strategy that you use with going with or against a trend with your short-term positions or a little bit longer duration holds, always be careful and safe within those contexts. So the box. There are strong stocks sneaking out of the box or sneaking into breakout mode. And we'll conclude tonight's video looking at just some of them. Somebody brought this to my attention, and it's not something I look at very often, but this is Avis Rental Car. And the rental car market is coming back with the transportation, or at least with the economy broadening out or opening back up. So there's a little bit of a stealth rally or a hidden rally, at least that I was not super aware of until just recently seeing some of the budget cars or rental car companies do very, very well. And again, this is that concept of the box or the line. And once the box is complete, that does lead to breakouts or sustained directional movement. It doesn't have to be to the upside, but when a market breaks out of a long-term consolidation, it can go rapidly. In the case of car or Avis Rental Car, that share price has just about doubled. And it's more than, much more than doubled since the pandemic lows earlier in 2020. And it trades at this moment at 75 per share. But other stocks are in play. There's the Russell, there's the S&P 500, its performance on today's session, S&P 100, and the Nasdaq, and the market cap names. Now, let's look at the scan. We don't have to see all these names or take a look at all of them, but these are stocks in the S&P 500 that just made new, in some cases, all-time highs, but in the case of the scan, a 52-week high or a new yearly high. And the purpose of the scan, just to be clear, is finding stocks that are strong now that tend to get stronger in the future. And that allows for buy positions or pullback positions through spreads or calls, or if it's a downtrending stock, we're not seeing them here at least, but if the broader market does go into downtrend mode, we'll be scanning for stocks making new 52-week lows. There just aren't many of them doing that, if any. And that is a large part because of the coronavirus recovery and the economic recovery and all the stimulus measures that took place at the beginning of 2020, really March into April and May. So it's going to be hard to find stocks that are underneath their coronavirus lows, but some of them do exist. So these are the ones that are strong. And just to name a few, with the market cap link is Home Depot. Now, Home Depot is a stock that there's the box, right? There's the consolidation, the sideways line. There's a big expansion or trend to the upside, followed by a contraction and little trick. But Home Depot shares have now made new highs. And just a few others. Kraft Heinz Food is a defensive stock, and that's strong. And O'Reilly Automotive, similar a little bit to Home Depot. And Allstate, trend to the upside. AutoZone, I've seen it recently. So there are strong money flow. There is strong money flow into some of these stocks that is just persistent to the upside. AutoZone being one of them. Of course, we saw Cars, Avis, or Car, C-A-R, being another, and Dollar Tree. So we won't really go beyond those, but just taking a look again at the scan, we have a lot of stocks that are strong, and these are ranked in the S&P 500 by market cap. So feel free to freeze the screen or take a look at these or make your own notes of some of these stocks that are strong getting stronger in the context of a broader market that is tenuously bullish. Always guard your risk. This is Corey Rosenblum with tonight's Theo video update for March 30th, 2021.